All right.
That works.
All right. We're on the air. I love when we start and we don't really start. I think that's our coolest. I think that's our coolest. Our coolest beginnings.
Yeah.
It shows that this is real. This is live. This is raw.
And this is mute.
And that's mute. Hello and welcome to Pardon My Disruption. I'm Alan Berson. I'm the Director of Community Outreach for Fresh Desk. And I'm joined as always by Jonathan Yarmis, AKA Dr. Disruptive. The doctor is in the house.
Making house calls.
And we are broadcasting live from the Stanford
Try English.
The Stanford Innovation Center. You know, there's some exercises you do before you get, like sibilate. Yeah, all right. We're broadcasting live from the Stanford Innovation Center in beautiful
downtown Stanford, and it is beautiful.
It is beautiful. We are having unseasonably warm weather. We didn't hit a record today. We were 2 degrees off the record.
Well, there's still a lot of hours left in the day.
Oh, so you think it's so just because they predicted a temperature that we're not going to hit it on the nose?
Oh, the weatherman is 100% accurate. Talk about a big data problem. Yeah. Weather forecasting is a fascinating big data.
But it's a great business to be in because you don't have to be right.
Yeah, exactly.
Very often,
or
if at all.
I was an economics major, and a set of economists, it's the only profession where you can have a long and successful career and never be right.
And never be right. Right. So we broadcast the second Friday of every month. Our next show will be on January 22nd,
which if you do your math,
which if you do your math is not the second Friday of the month. I will be halfway across the world. I'll be in India at the Fresh Desk headquarters in Chennai.
We could do a live remote, and you could join us at 1:30 in the morning. I believe.
Let's see, 12 p.m. would be 9:30.
9:30 is okay.
That's not terrible, but it's a Friday night though.
You're going out in Chennai?
Of course. Come on.
Yeah, they've actually been having some really tough problems over there.
They have. They've had talk about
continuing our meteorological theme.
I think the word epic is not out of place to say that they've had rain there that they haven't had in 100 years and floods.
Yeah,
it's been crazy. So it's the end of the year. It's our holiday edition.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Diwali, Christmas, Kwanzaa.
Just throw them out.
Yes. Yeah, we are launching wars on no holidays.
So if I say happy holidays, then I pretty much offend everybody?
Yes, yeah, equally. Yeah.
Equally, well, we are equal opportunity offenders.
Yes.
Never let it be said that we didn't offend everybody equally.
Yeah, we could be presidential candidates with that attitude.
Not even going to go there.
Yeah, I don't think our audience is
not even going to go there.
For the most part, supporters of the candidate who will not be named.
No, we will not.
Yes,
we will not name that name. So this is our end of the year show, and so it's interesting to take a look back and also take a look forward. Although I guess next month we'll really take more of a look forward, but.
I don't like looking backwards because this industry changes so much. This show is enough of a look backwards. What happened last month?
So you're a driver, right? You ever watch Gumball Rally?
Yes.
And what does the Italian guy do with his car? First thing he gets into it, he pulls off the rearview mirror. He says, "What's behind me? It's not important."
Yeah. Or Satchel Paige. Don't look back. Something might be gaining on you.
So, but there's some pretty exciting things in the works. Year in review. What do we have that we? I think it's interesting to start with the fact that we talked about that item that I got in the mail from the New York Times.
Google Cardboard.
Google Cardboard, and the fact that this virtual reality technology is becoming a mass consuming technology, and that to me is just wild.
Yeah, what I love about looking backwards, I as a technology prognosticator observe that quite frequently I'm overly optimistic in the near term, but in fact conservative in the medium term. That the things we think of as wild and crazy at the moment we talk about them When we look 3 to 5 years down the road, in fact, these things have grown bigger than we could have ever forecast. So an example in my mind of that, I wrote a report in January of 2008 entitled Twitter, the most important platform you've never heard of. And as you might imagine, at the time, everybody... 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the time, as you might imagine, people thought I was nuts. Well, they generally think that, but with that particular, even more than usual.
More than usual. Okay.
And here we are, 7 years later, and I just happened to do a Google search for something and was surprised by the number of results a search returned. So I decided, what happens if you Google Twitter? And if you Google Twitter, you get 11 billion, the B, billion, results.
Dr.
You're
Dr. Evil and Dr. Disruptive today. Okay.
And so there are a whole bunch of things that when you start to see signs of movement and signs of mainstream in a particular technology, for which I've been overly excited about in the past. When you see those mainstream adoption moves like Google Cardboard, I expect that to be a really big theme in 2016. In fact, I was just down in Florida last week, speaking at a Florida Travel Council leadership meeting, and they asked me to talk about disruptive technologies. And I made the observation, and some of it, New York, well, I was going to say New York's a bit of a weird place, but the numbers are probably even less than that of, say, the Bay Area.
Right.
But, we analysts do weird things. Walking around New York, I make the observation that approximately a third of the people you see walking down the street are walking down the street.
With a device.
Not just with a device, looking at the device.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they've all got the device. A third of them are actively looking and walking.
Right.
At some point, these amusement parks, and with the Florida Travel Council, big amusement parks are members of this. I made the observation, it's like, okay, you spend 10 hours in a Disney theme park. You're on a ride for what? Probably 14 minutes in aggregate.
Altogether, yes.
Yeah, in aggregate.
Yes.
In aggregate,
on a ride.
14 minutes on the ride. You spend that was my guess.
Oh, your guess.
Yeah.
But it's probably not far off.
Yeah. So that means you spend 9 hours and 46 minutes waiting online, walking between attractions, a little bit of time eating. What are they missing by not extending the experience by this? They can increase your perceived entertainment quotient exponentially. Exponentially. And I don't use that to, if you're only on 14 minutes, the opportunity to do something, 140 minutes, with this device. And there are games you can walk around and with location beacons and so on, maybe it's collect targets or shoot the guy.
Or even if it's just content to consume while you're waiting.
Yes.
For your kids.
Yes.
No, if you had to ask about the biggest complaint about the big amusement parks, it's the lines. People make their plans. There are companies that will tell you how to get the most. Like, here, rush into the park, go sign up here, then go sign up there, then run over this line because the lines are just insane.
Yeah, and there are applications that will give you real-time waits for the rides, and there's the fast pass kinds of things.
Right.
It's a problem, but it's still, in aggregate, none of those things change the fact that you're only on the ride for 14 minutes.
Right.
Maybe if you're efficient, you can go on Space Mountain a second time, so it's up to 15 minutes.
So you pay $150 to get into the park for the day, and you get 14 minutes worth of entertainment.
Yeah, not a bad business model. But I think the opportunity for technology to extend a whole bunch of experiences,
right,
or social. I think we're at an interesting point. It's almost boring to talk about social because it's like, okay, I get it. Facebook, LinkedIn. But there are a whole bunch of things that I think are missing that when you start to tie together the Internet of Things and social and all the information that's available, again, being in front of all of these hotel people, I had some fun. I said, with all the information that you've got about me, Why is it that 95% of the time, if there's acknowledgement of me as a traveler, it's a fruit basket? And I stood up in front of them and said, do I look like a guy who eats fruit?
Right.
It's a fruit basket. How about, chocolate, a baseball ticket? There are a whole bunch of things.
And it's not hard to find out what it is that you're interested in.
No.
You are easily vettable.
Yes, and it's not only is it not hard, it is systematically doable. It's not like I'm requiring them to have somebody in a back office. Let's Google Jonathan and see. It's something they can do systematically. The next big trend of 2016, I think, is going to be software and APIs. I said to these people, if you don't think of yourself as a software company these days, you are missing something, terribly wrong. And I would say that's true of most companies. I find these GE commercials fascinating. I love them. Where the programmer, his dad gives him a hammer.
It's your grandpappy's hammer.
Yeah.
You're an engineer.
And his friends are looking at him like, you've gone to work for GE? I'll be doing programming. I'm on trains. You're making trains. You're riding. The GE has figured it out and figured it out wonderfully.
I think I heard it was a GE CMO who said, or a CTO.
Is that Beth Comstock?
No, it was a gentleman who said that GE is like the 4th largest software company in the world. Some insane.
Yeah, and you can sort of understand why they need to be that way, because their hardware business, GE brings good things to life. They made light bulbs. That was a great business to be in because the light bulb blew out every 8 months or whatever it was. Now these things last 6 years.
I feel like I need to get like a deduction on my house when I sell it if I still have my LED light bulbs.
Yeah. I've been in my apartment for almost 3 years now, and I believe I have not changed a light bulb.
You have that? Are you using the compact fluorescent, or are you using the LED?
LED.
Yeah. 12 years? I mean, what's the lifespan on those? 20 years?
Yeah, but when you start talking about what you can do with software around those things, when your light bulb is connected to the internet, so if somebody's around, the lights go up, depending upon who it is, it's like, ooh, mood lighting. There are a whole bunch of things you can do with software to define the experience, and I really think that this whole social, mobile, big data, cloud, IoT thing, that there are a lot of times we look at these 5 platforms separately, but in fact, all of them occurring in near simultaneity enable really interesting things. And we've done boring things like, okay, Facebook got over 1 billion people on social, that we're all connected.
That's boring.
I know. I'm being somewhat facetious.
Okay.
But getting to critical mass is important.
Right.
But once you've gotten to critical mass, all of a sudden a new set of capabilities become able. The way you get to critical mass is doing things that we used to do in other fashions, better, faster, cheaper. But the second wave of most technologies is when we've reached that critical mass, what now can we do that we couldn't do before? And I think we're at that stage now with all of this stuff where we've got critical mass of connected devices, robust software architectures, advanced platforms, that we can start to do these creative, innovative things that make companies and in many ways even us individuals, if you use IFTT, we're doing our own personal programming and connecting and uniting our environments through software and interfaces.
Right. You are with IFTTT, you are basically making yourself a hub of programming.
Yes. And it extends your capabilities.
If you don't know what it is, IFTTT, if this, then that. It's a website that all it does is have connectors, APIs, to different software. So you can say, if something happens on Twitter, do something in an email, or if so, you can connect things like that.
Yeah. And it's just powerful capabilities, and I think everybody in this world. So that's one of the things we've laid all of the infrastructure. 2015 was a good year with IoT to start to think about how we connect other things, whether it's municipalities, whether it's automobiles, that we're connecting a whole bunch of interesting things that enable us to do rich new capabilities. And I think we'll see a lot of progress in 2016. If I were to be the pessimist, and I don't play that role very often, but there's still the looming, and what about security when we connect all of these things? Because IFTTT, all of these things we're talking about programming, oftentimes security is an afterthought, or it's not thought of until, oops, there was a terrible breach and it happened to me. It's kind of the old joke, recession is when your neighbor loses a job, depression is when you lose your job. Security is a problem when it happens to somebody else. It's a disaster when it happens to you.
Right. And security is the enemy of convenience.
Yes.
And convenience is what is driving innovation in terms of adoption of technology. It's like, how do I make something more convenient? How do I make it easier? How do I make it automatic? How do I make it that I'm not even thinking about it, and that my things are talking to each other to make my life better?
And most companies, the truth of that, if you ask them what their security strategy is, they'll talk about their levels of investment, and they'll talk about all the things they're doing and creating a culture of strong security and stuff like that. The truth of the matter is what they're doing is, I hope it happens to the other guy. I'm sure, the day of the Target breach, the Walmart CEO woke up and said, glad it was them and not me. Yeah, because it equally easily could have been them.
So I like a section you put here. It's called Things That Will Go Away. So in 2016, what things are going to go away? There is technology that's been lingering around.
Yes.
For a while, and it's almost each time you think, well, it's kind of dead. No, not dead yet.
It's kind of like Generalissimo Franco. He's nearing death. He's really, that man was near death for about 4 years.
Or it's Monty Python. In fact, I'm feeling
so what's dead? Okay. I think even Adobe acknowledges that Flash is dead. Among other things, they renamed their Flash development to creative something or other, what have you. Because among other things, their affirmative messaging would be, the truth of the matter is the tool was used to do more things other than Flash, and at this point, a majority of it was done in other than Flash. Apple's the first one who took the shot at it, saying, it's a security nightmare, it's a performance hog, it's a relic of a past time. And I think we're to a point now where, especially Flash's lack of presence on mobile devices.
If you're not on mobile, you're basically, you don't exist.
Yes, and from a developer perspective, you're either doing apps and or HTML5. And if you're doing HTML5, it obviates the need. Flash is a cross-platform standard that could run everything. Now, isn't cross-platform.
Those Flash crash models.
Yes.
That'll be so sad.
Yeah, and there are probably other people who are taken down by it because Adobe was one of the worst progenitors of let's trick you into loading crapware on your phone. Yeah. Where you click something that isn't really what I was, they got me. None of that, are you sure? Or the ones where, amazingly enough, everything they've got checked is something you want to uncheck, and everything unchecked, you've got to agree to the terms. It's like, how can they be so devious?
So the replacement for Flash is?
HTML5 and apps.
That's it?
Yep. Nice knowing you, Flash. Yeah. That was one of my favorite comics as a kid.
Flash.
Yeah.
And it's actually a pretty good show.
Yeah. Better than Supergirl.
Right,
Have you? Yeah, we talked about Supergirl. Have you watched any of the episodes?
I watched one episode with my kids. They love it.
Do they?
They love it.
But you agree with me, one was enough.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. All right. So the next one on your list is one that is near and dear to my heart for very sentimental reasons.
Yes.
I just had one on my hip for so many years.
Yeah.
And talk about I'm dead, and talk about missed opportunities.
Yes.
And particularly when you talk about security.
And their death is an interesting death, but we're talking about BlackBerry. And I'd say related to it in some ways is also, I won't declare keyboards dead yet, but keyboards are dead on mobile devices in large fashion. The only people who still use keyboards are the BlackBerry holdouts.
There are no new adopters for keyboards.
No.
It's the old ones who say, I can't get rid of my keyboard.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject, let me just also throw in a quick pet peeve. While keyboards exist on desktops, why is it that my data entry experience on a mobile device is so much better than my data entry experience on?
I expect keyboard entry to guess and autocorrect.
Yeah, and if I hit double space, insert a period, there's so much more processing power available on my desktop than my mobile device. Why is it that my mobile device has a vastly better input experience? Microsoft, it's a huge missed opportunity, and Apple too for that. Yeah. But BlackBerry, there's so many things that are still good about their platform that it's a shame. The security of it, the reliability of it. Heck, back in the day, when my mobile phone was challenged to last 4 hours, a BlackBerry would last for 3 days. It was the Hanukkah oil of mobile devices.
Because it had no processing.
Yes.
It didn't have any graphics.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But they also had an efficient network that contributed, to some extent. But yeah, it wasn't doing much. But even as they upped it, their battery life was better than others. But the security of the device, the architecture, and they keep wrestling, are we a hardware company or a software company? If we're a software company, what is our mission and how do we get on our non-captive platforms? And I think to some extent that they've missed the window.
They pioneered mobile device management.
Yep, mobile device management, mobile device messaging, DBM. Yeah.
But the messaging aside, because SMS was always a competitor.
Yes.
So there was a competitor, but from a mobile device management point of view, and that's a big thing. And if you talk about trends of 2016, enterprise, particularly for business, mobile device management is huge.
And by the way, so is messaging. Look at WhatsApp and the numbers on those things. I forget it. I did my presentation in Florida. But the number of messages that will be sent this year is measured in not billions, trillions of messages. And the volume of those things, and it being...
My daughter left her phone home from school one day. And all I hear, and she had it on, vibrate. She wasn't
Yeah, I'm surprised there were moments of silence. Was a wild dancing around the table. Yeah, that was one of the neat apps somebody had on an iPhone.
Oh, yeah?
They used the vibrate capability. You'd set the iPhone, on the table like this, and you'd run this app, and it would turn the phone in a 360-degree circle. For a while, it was I think Apple blocked it for some reason, but it was one of the big apps in the App Store that it would rotate the phone 360 degrees, snapping pictures. Yeah, but BlackBerry, and related to that, Windows Mobile, that we've even recently seen no less a personage than Steve Ballmer, who was enjoying his retirement from Microsoft and ownership of the LA Clippers, who in effect said, that Microsoft's mobile strategy was wrong, that they're just not going to get sufficient developer support for the Windows mobile platform to make a cross-device application strategy workable, and instead what they ought to do is figure out how to support Android apps.
Right.
So the mobile platform battles, are largely over, and it's iOS and Android.
Right, but at the same, but the circumstances where BlackBerry is still trying to figure out what they want to view when they grow up, Microsoft does have a device strategy that is actually becoming impactful.
Above the phone. You're talking about the tablets.
No, but what I'm saying is BlackBerry as a company, that's why we have them on the dying part, as opposed to Windows 10 is Windows Mobile is a dead end. But that's where let's let that go and we'll continue because we have other stuff that's working on.
Okay. Yes.
That's how it works.
Yes.
And
the other thing that going to perhaps go away.
This is probably no surprise to people, and actually it's almost but I think this is be careful what you wish for scenario.
Yeah, oh yes.
Yeah.
And it also, if you're over the age of 34, this probably impacts you more than
34. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, you're over.
34. Yeah.
Yeah. You're considerably over, aren't you?
Easy then.
Well, not as over as me. Yeah.
You'll always be older than I.
Yeah. Yes, but proportionally less so.
No, your response should be yes, but there's no guarantee that you'll get to be as old as I.
Yeah,
that's the correct response.
No, my father and I actually celebrated the double your age day. The day when I was exactly double his age. When I was born, he was 28.
You were double your father's age?
No, he was double my age. I'm sorry if I misspoke. No, I was not double. Yeah, I aged quickly. No. But when I was born,
like this.
Dad was 32, so he was 32 times my age, and on that day, 32 years later, I was 32, he was 64. He's merely double my age.
It sounds like an Abbott and Costello sketch. She's catching up. I was nice enough to wait for her.
I miss that skit. No.
It's an age thing.
Oh, it's an age thing? You mean because you're younger, you saw it than me? No.
No. It's an age joke. All right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Who's on first?
So the question. So if you're over 34.
Yeah. Cable TV bundles. That we're starting to see the erosion of the pay everything for all of the cable channels you can get. And there are a variety of things that are chipping away at it. The obvious ones are things like Netflix and Hulu and things that make programming available on an a la carte basis. The non-obvious one is, we've talked on occasion about the ESPN tax, that something on the order of as much as a third of your cable bill actually goes to ESPN. And there are a whole bunch of people, I'm happy to pay that amount of money because I watch ESPN with some regularity. In fact, there's an ESPN show, Pardon the Interruption, that was the motivation and inspiration for this show. There are a lot of people who could care less about ESPN and would love to be able to.
No, I believe it couldn't care less.
Couldn't. I stand corrected.
That's one of my pet peeves.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, who don't give a damn about ESPN would love to not have to, and we've got one in the room. Yeah, and would not pay for it if they had a choice.
Right.
And so that significant burden there causing people to say, what can I do without paying for ESPN? And this is something that's rippling through the sports world right now, because broadcast television money has been something that's fueled TV, is in huge demand because live events are the one thing people talk about simultaneously and socially share and don't time shift. and watch avidly. So it's a ripe environment for advertisers. And the fact that ESPN subscribership was down 7% in the last year is something that is sending shockwaves through the industry. Where what does this mean for the engine that's been fueling so much of the money in sports? But when you said be careful what you ask for, the bundle has had two advantages. One, if I'm paying a third of my cable bill for ESPN, there are a lot of channels for which I'm effectively paying zero. And I'm getting them just because they're part of the bundle. The incremental cost to the cable company of providing it is zero, and therefore they'll include it. So you may now have to pay for channels that today you're not paying for, and you may find that when you add it all up, that the bundle you want is more expensive than the all-you-can-eat, which we've just killed. Problem number two, there are a number of channels that we would consider high-quality channels that probably don't have the sufficient economics to stand on their own, and once we take that safety net of the bundle away from them, will cease to exist. So we're going to get more Kardashians and less science documentaries. And that's probably not a good thing either.
Right. Discover all the science related.
Yeah, they'll be hard pressed, and we'll see. We've got kind of the warning shot of Rupert Murdoch's acquisition of National Geographic, and we'll see what that means for quality programming in that outlet. Or is this, the cautionary tale about what happens in an unbundled world to quality programming?
Right, but I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of live versus. I look at I always use my household as a example in terms of consumption.
Yes.
We are not, I have teenage kids, and I'd say less than 1% of the stuff they watch is live. That's an astounding number.
Yeah.
And it's not like they don't watch a lot of stuff.
Right. Oh, the media consumption of today's youth is way greater than what we
I'd say that YouTube would be top. Second, in terms of time spent, might be Instagram.
Snapchat gets a lot of
in that
demographic. But I'm going to generalize to that.
Netflix and Hulu and Amazon.
Yes. Yeah.
But very little live. I can't even think of the last thing they watched live. Maybe it was like the Tonys.
Yeah. Although I'm going to stump you on this one.
Yeah.
Do you know what the number one consumer of live bandwidth is on the internet?
It's not Netflix?
No.
Oh, live. Of live bandwidth.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, you can win bar bets on this one. No. I believe news is third or fourth.
Okay. Live? It's got to be porn.
No. No. Twitch. Which, if you don't know what Twitch is, and most of you don't, it's watching live video games. Amazon paid, I believe, it was over $1 billion. It may have been $2 billion. For people to watch live video game consume. Live bandwidth consumer.
Wow.
The numbers on Twitch are staggering. In terms of how many people actually view it. I mean, that's something that's so, I can't think of a more ridiculous thing to do, watching video games. Play them, I still do. Watch them, I don't. But large numbers of people watch it on average an hour and a half a day, and it's a big bandwidth consumer. So you take large numbers with reasonable bandwidth consumptions. It's the number one, more MLB, I believe, was third. WWE was second. Yeah.
MLB, just because you have a lot of games.
Yeah.
NFL probably gets the most concentrated, but
there's not a lot of NFL available on the internet. No.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? You have something here which is talking about the enterprise. So I think maybe we want to actually talk about the enterprise. And it's we had talked about unicorns before.
Yes.
But I think that IPOs are also interesting, particularly when it comes to enterprise software.
Yeah.
And particularly when it's a piece of software that most people have never heard of.
Yeah. Atlassian.
Atlassian. All right, come on. If you're out there, raise your hand if you ever heard of Atlassian.
Yeah. Or Twitch. Yeah. Twitch. Yeah. We're doing new platforms today, but Atlassian's a kind of boring enterprise, infrastructure enablement messaging kind of
developer. If you're a developer, you're using Jira.
Yes.
If you're a developer, I mean it's a staple.
Yeah, and you look at the enterprise software companies and unicorns, which Alan mentioned. These are the term was coined of companies in the private market who have billion-dollar valuations, and there are 130 something of them at the moment. Highly valued, but oftentimes we pay attention to the really big names, Uber, Airbnb, people of that ilk.
The consumer facing.
Yes. And those oftentimes are these really big hit and miss, and their growth path and valuations almost necessitate going for home runs and not necessarily building stable business franchises. I watched the co-CEOs of Atlassian on Bloomberg TV yesterday, and boy, I had never heard them speak until yesterday. I can understand why they successfully went public and why they built a successful business, because they talk about things unlike consumer companies who still talk about interesting, silly, and not necessarily monetizable metrics like eyeballs and engagement, and I don't want to poo-poo those metrics, because you can build big and successful companies based on those things. But oftentimes, to build those big and successful companies, you need to pervert what you originally set out to do. So if Facebook set out to originally connect people, and Mark Zuckerberg in his lofty moments will say that's what his real mission is.
Right.
When he decided to build a business, he had to get away from that mission, and his real business is connecting us to marketers.
Right. That's a massive ad distribution network.
Yes, and it perverts the nature of your business, where these enterprise guys and gals, predominantly guys, you've been to the enterprise tech meetup in New York, and it's a heavily male-dominated environment, but the enterprise software companies generally set about, with a mission saying, okay, what's a pain point in the enterprise? And let me build a business that has a clear and direct business model. And that's one of the differentiators between the enterprise tech meetup and the New York tech meetup.
Right.
The New York tech meetup, which is the granddaddy of meetups, they fill the auditorium at NYU every month to listen to 5 or so companies present about their, I was going to say their business, present about their product. Because one of the questions that you're not supposed to ask, and if you're a newbie and ask, the audience will hoot you down, is what's your business model?
Right. How you can make money? What's your monetization strategy?
As if there's something wrong with that. But the enterprise companies have clear paths to monetization, and it's never a bad time to think about how they're going to make money and how they build a business that takes the technology that they're solving, identifies a buyer, identifies a value proposition, and brings it to market. And so, Atlassian is the most recent example. Box is an example. If Dropbox is kind of the consumer darling of the file sharing space, Box has taken a more enterprise-oriented approach to things. And there was just a recent article, I believe it was in the New York Times, but talking about, that everybody says, oh, life as a public company is tough. And Aaron Levy, the CEO of Box, basically saying, no, I'm glad I did it. And here are the benefits it's brought me. Here's the benefits it's brought my employees. Here's how it's better tied us to the market and made us a better enterprise software company because of that focus. So, I happen to think, it's not always sexy, but enterprise software, we'll see more of these in the coming years. And if there are concerns in the market, can it sustain all of these unicorns, that there aren't enough exits and how there are going to be these down rounds and companies will have trouble raising money. I think a number of high-flying consumer-facing companies are going to have a tough 2016 because the money pool is going to dry up. The enterprise software companies are going to move into the ascendancy and be really interesting with opportunities for success.
Well, I think that enterprise software has lagged in terms of innovation. Just not necessarily. It's more about adoption. That where consumers, they have their consumption cycle is measured in months and years. Maybe years. For enterprise, it could be a decade in terms of before you're ready to change something, or you have the wherewithal, or you can get around to it, or.
But that's not sustainable. Those kinds of enterprises are going to get themselves in trouble. Recent example.
But I'm saying that's where there's still room for that type of innovation in that market, and that's why there's an opportunity for the enterprise software.
And I would say not only room there's imperative. One of the examples I find interesting, Hyundai just announced this week that they're effectively abandoning their car telematics platform. That basically they've said, our DNA is not able to compete with what Google and Apple are doing, and therefore we need to embrace their technologies into our environment rather than compete on our own, because we can't keep up. And I think a lot of enterprises are going to come to that realization that there are a whole bunch of things that they need to do faster if they are to succeed as businesses. And so I think 2016 is going to be interesting for the enterprise, because it's finally the year where, again, all of this deployment of cloud and mobile is going to force them to say, I'm moving my infrastructure so quickly. What are the business results? How do I make my business faster? Hence the focus not only on analytics, but forward-facing, predictive analytics. Not the traditional business intelligence. The holiday season is over. Let me see how things went. It's like, no, what do I need to change at 2 o'clock because what I did at 9 o'clock wasn't working?
So what do you think is the biggest obstacle for that enterprise adoption? I know in my mind, because I'm in that business and I see it and I have an answer. I'm curious what yours is.
Okay, I would say there are a couple of things. Under the broad heading of fear, it's security,
that was my
manageability,
I like the broad
compliance.
The broad heading of fear, security and compliance.
They'll say, oh, compliance, oh, security. Inside, what they're really saying is this stuff scares the living hell out of me. That I know how to manage that old environment, and I'm not going to get fired when I wave the security banner to slow things down. But that never works. It doesn't slow anything down, and it forces your users underground into less secure environments. That's what kills me about it. They're afraid, and by being afraid, they expose themselves to more risk. But it's the ostrich thing. If they put their head in the ground and don't see it, therefore the risk doesn't exist.
Which is this departmental adoption of products like Dropbox and that type of thing.
Yes.
Right. All right. What else do we have here that you'd like to talk about? Because we have like a bazillion things.
Yeah, we do. It's been quite a month. The end of the year, I think, gets us to be reflective. So let's see, other things in the news. In the news today, the courts have upheld, the initial New York's Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, who went after DraftKings and FanDuel. The courts refused to overturn the initial injunction against those guys operating in New York State. So I think this notion of what's gambling and what's not is
becoming more clear.
Yes.
Less gray.
Yeah, even while I think we both agree, A, it's a game of skill.
It's definitely a game of skill.
Yeah. B, though, even if it's gambling, this is one where I guess I don't understand. I mean, the libertarian in me, and I'm not a, all out libertarian, but it's like, is DraftKings and it's kind of a victimless crime. It's great for the state coffers because we can tax it. We know where it is, so we can tax it. Let's legalize gambling, legalize marijuana. I don't know, legalize. I can make an argument against prostitution, but there are a whole bunch of the sin things that were vestiges of a bygone era. Although, going back to politics, I guess there are those who would like to revisit the bygone era because it was a nicer and simpler time. But it's like
they thought it was a nicer and simpler time.
Yes, and it's and they can sell it as a nicer and simpler time.
Right.
But I really think that this, whether it's gambling or a game of skill, as long as we've got the appropriate disclosures, I think people have figured out how to make these bets. If they close down the visible platforms, it's not like they're going to shut down those businesses completely. There will be lots of ways around it, and people are going to bet. Let's just make it informed betting, and let's tax it so that we can capture, some of that money for social good.
All right, it's time for our.
Don't you want to do this one last one? I like this.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, the product release of the month.
Oh yeah, this is great.
The product release of the month, Apple. And somewhere Steve Jobs is rolling over in his grave.
And this is not a third party.
Apple.
This is Apple.
Apple. One of the reasons why the iPhone doesn't have a replaceable battery is Steve Jobs wanted it to be as thin as possible, and putting in a replaceable battery meant you had to do a couple of things that made the phone, I don't know my metrics, a millimeter thicker.
Right.
You old enough to remember the cigarette, a silly millimeter longer?
No.
Yeah, the standard length of a cigarette was 100 millimeters, and Chesterfield, I don't know who it was, but somebody sold a cigarette that was 101 millimeters, a silly millimeter longer. A millimeter hasn't mattered ever since until now, where Steve Jobs said, I want the phone to be as thin as possible, and nixed a replaceable battery, which I, as somebody who carries around a battery pack to keep my phone charged.
ABC, always be charging.
Yes, I have a replaceable battery for my phone and have, it's a purchase decision criteria for me. So Apple is now selling an external battery pack to clip around your iPhone, because enough people have been buying these things that Apple, A, acknowledges there's a problem, and B, in their desire to make all of the money off of their ecosystem, has finally said, yeah, enough fun, Mophie's had enough fun selling a battery pack, $3 worth of components for $90. We want a piece of that business. They're selling a battery pack that ruins the beautiful, sleek lines of the iPhone, but extends its utility to all day.
And Steve Jobs is just Shaking his head somewhere.
Yep, but bravo to Tim Cook, who a little pragmatism is not a bad thing.
Right, right. But that's not often what you see in the Apple brand.
Right. Yeah, but it is premium price.
Maybe that's
and you do see that in the Apple product.
All right. Shame on you.
Yeah, we ought to do like is it John Stossel who does that? A whole show on this.
Yeah.
But shame on you the Journal, I believe, ran an article this week basically saying extended warranties. Do not buy them, unless there's compelling economic advantage. Most of the things are so caveated and so priced. I've got one on my smartphone. I've never had to use it. When I add up all that I spent on the extended warranty, I could have bought a new phone or traded it in. It's the one product I've bought. It's so caveated, you can only use it. The deck is stacked against you. Do not, when you're at the checkout counter this holiday season, for those of you.
Here's your holiday tip.
Yeah.
Holiday tip from the doctor.
Yes, if you're doing your last couple of nights of Hanukkah shopping, your Christmas shopping, and any other holidays, New Year shopping.
You need the money that you didn't spend on Black Friday or Cyber Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
A third of which was spent on mobile devices, interestingly enough.
And probably extended warranties.
Yes. But when you're at the cash register and the clerk goes, do you want to get the extended warranty? The answer is no. When the clerk then says, I'll knock 20% off the price, the answer is still no. And that, by the way, is increasingly a negotiating strategy, and in person and online. There are merchants, shopping tip number 2 for the holiday season. Leave it in your shopping cart. Don't click buy right away. There are some number of merchants, when you do that, will say, you still got a shopping cart here, I'll give you X% off.
Or when you go onto Facebook, because you have a cookie in your browser, it'll say, oh, you were looking up here. Here's 20% off of that item that was already in your shopping cart.
Yes. Yeah. But the bottom line is a little bit of patience. So say no for a short period of time for some things, but extended warranties, no.
No. Okay.
The other shame on you, we're all used to getting these system maintenance notices. The system is going to be down between 3 and 5 a.m. for maintenance. And it's like, okay, I still think most organizations need to figure out how to be up 24/7, 365.
Right.
So the fact that they can't do that is mildly problematic. One that crossed my desk in the last couple of days that was like, really, guys? Hyatt Hotels, their frequent stayer program is going to be offline December 15th through the 18th. What are they, 4 days worth of system
maintenance? What are you doing for 4 days?
Yeah. I haven't looked. Maybe it's over a holiday, so they're actually working Friday and Monday, and can't get everything done on Friday, so they're not opening it up Saturday and Sunday, and we'll finish it up. 4 days for system maintenance for something that I can't imagine is that complicated to fix. Was it that broken? I mean, this is something that's been around for 20 years and they're going to be offline for 4 days.
There's probably a story there. All right. Well, since you dinged Hyatt, I think you have to give a kudo
to Marriott Courtyard. Those of us who stay at hotels are, it's interesting how hotels price internet access. Generally, the cheaper the hotel, the more likely the internet is free. Right. The more expensive the hotel, the more likely you have to pay for internet, or they're now all discovering, well, maybe we need to enable free internet measured at kind of like 4,800 baud. Yeah, not even measured in megabits. We'll go back to baud rates and charge you for tiered access. And those of us who carry multiple devices, and no one carries more multiple devices than me, or sometimes you log in, like JetBlue. I logged into their internet on the plane with my tablet, and then I went to log into my cell phone and it said you already logged in. And I had to put in a different email address. So the fact that I've got multiple email addresses that let me log in the second device. But some people, every time you try and log in a new device, they try and charge you. The Marriott Courtyard lets you sign in with 5 devices simultaneously. And that, if you're traveling with a family, everybody's got a device or 2, you're probably in reasonable shape. But the fact that they recognize the fact that we now all have our own devices and/or multiple devices, bravo to Courtyard.
And we have another kudo, which is billions and
billions.
and billions.
That's
the theme of the part of my disruption. It's billions.
Yes, and this, as you rightly pointed out, is both a kudo and a shame on you. Mark Zuckerberg announced that he's giving 99% of his wealth away to charity. He did this in the form of a letter to his newly born daughter. Congratulations to the Zuckerbergs. Congratulations to Marissa Mayer, who gave birth to twins this week and may, in the not too distant future, be a full-time mom.
Wow. Maybe we'll have to talk about that next month.
But Zuckerberg announced that he's leaving 99% of his wealth to his daughter. Now, don't fear to charity. Right. Yeah, don't fear for the daughter, because 1% of his wealth means she's still got $450 million at her disposal. It's not like he's leaving a pauper. The kudo is leaving so much of his wealth to charity at such a young age. Other tech entrepreneurs have done this, but generally later in their stage of wealth. Bill Gates being the most prominent example. Right. Mark Benioff, is I think a laudable charitable donor, and Zuckerberg is doing it at a young age. And understandably, I'd say, he's also doing it in a way that is both tax advantaged and control advantaged. Right. He's managed to take the company public while retaining, a majority share of the voting interests, and he's giving up the wealth without giving up the control, and giving up the wealth through an LLC in a way that it provides tax advantages that, I suppose I can't begin to understand what it would be like to deal with $45 billion and the tax issues associated with that. But as my father observed, I would love to be the person who pays more taxes than anybody else in America. I was happy when my accountant one year told me I paid the most taxes of any of his clients. I wonder, if Zuckerberg gets a letter from the government going, "Congratulations, you're our #1 taxpayer this year." Frequent taxpayer credits. Yeah, there ought to be a loyalty program. He wins.
All right, interesting factoids.
You want to give the one you like so much? Because I'll distance myself. This is not from personal experience.
So I'm not a gamer. Also,
Okay.
I don't play video games.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure I know what this game is.
Well, Fallout 4, I'm guessing, and I can stay with it's a first-person shooter on some platform.
Right.
And those of you who don't think a lot about video games, we think a lot about movies being released, and Star Wars is coming out soon, and it's likely to be the biggest opening weekend of any movie ever. Video game opening weekends are bigger than movie game opening weekends.
The movies, yeah.
Yes. Fallout 4, the opening was so big that there's a website which I can truthfully say I've never visited, not even in the name of research, called Pornhub. And the day Fallout 4 was released, Pornhub traffic dropped 10%.
That's my favorite factoid.
Gamers, new games will get them away from websites.
All right, well, on that note, we have to give one more factoid. This is about technology, so
yeah, I already snuck in the third of
right.
Black Friday purchases coming on mobile devices. What do you want? And I snuck in the Twitter search results. So how about the PC shipment?
No, that's the one.
Yeah. I was on a panel a couple of years ago with Stephen Baker of NPD, and we were discussing the death of the PC. And he's a PC guy. He counts PCs, and he said the death of the PC is overstated. And I said it's in inexorable decline. And this year, the evidence, those who thought Windows 10 might spur a revival, a replacement cycle, renewed growth in the PC market, found the converse to be true. PC shipments declined by about 10% this year, the first ever double-digit decrease in shipments. And so not only has it not spurred growth in the market, it's done nothing to stem, further declines in the market, because the reason to upgrade a PC has gone down.
And I think that we should finish on that because it's related. 1/3 of...
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Don't you listen to what I say?
No, not
always. When we were talking about Black Friday, you mentioned Black Friday, and I said, and I said, oh, by the way, I threw it in there that 1/3 of all purchases on that day were made for mobile devices. Right. It's one of those things. I think the mobile shopping experience keeps getting bigger. It used to be that when you really wanted to buy something on a mobile device, it was difficult.
Because you had to use a
real shopping.
You had to use a desktop web experience on your mobile device.
Yes.
And now you have a native shopping experience on your mobile device.
Yeah, whether it's through an app that does a really nice job of it, or through an HTML5 mobile optimized, mobile first, well-designed web page. The mobile shopping experience, I kind of measure this in terms of how much time it takes to do this. I've done a fair amount of my mobile purchasing, thinking about it over the years, on my train rides into the city. And there were times when it took darn near the whole train ride, and it's 50 minutes to get through a mobile purchase. I can now kind of 4 clicks, bing, bang, boom, done, and I haven't even crossed the New York state line, and I've completed my purchase. So the experience has gotten a lot better. So
what did you say about the extra, what was the extra millimeter on the cigarette? What did they call it?
A silly millimeter longer.
So we've been a silly 2 minutes longer. So you get a silly 2 minutes extra, part of my disruption for December. This has been Part of My Disruption. I'm Alan Berson, and joined as always by Jonathan Yarmis, Dr. Disruptive. We're here the second Friday of every month, except next month, January. It'll be the third Friday of the month on January 22nd. I will be on location in halfway around the world, unless we decide to do it on the second Friday and do it now.
No, probably.
It'll be on January 22nd. Thank you for joining us. And
happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Have a happy new year, and we'll see you next year.